Good afternoon. I'd like to call the June 27, 2019 Board of Education meeting to order. At this time, I'd like to call on Dwan Kraft to lead us in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes. He who travels the road best. It's from Puppies for Sale and Other Inspirational Tales. Once upon a time, a king had a great highway built. Before he opened it to the public, he had a contest to see who would travel the highway best. On the appointed day, the people came. Some had fine chariots, some used their feet, but no matter what vehicle they used, all of them complained that there was a large pile of rocks on the side of the road in one particular spot, which hindered their progress. At the end of the day, a lone traveler crossed the finish line and wearily walked over to the king. He was smudged with dirt, but he spoke with respect as he handed the monarch a bag of gold. "I stopped along the way to clear a pile of rocks," he said, "and under it was a bag of gold. Can you find the rightful owner?" Solemnly, the king replied, "You are the rightful owner. You have earned the gold by winning the contest. For he who travels the road best is he who makes the road smoother for those who follow." So it is in life. When people scramble to outdo each other, every now and then a leader comes along to pave the way for the rest of us. To these leaders are given the rewards, the sacks of gold called fame and fortune. Thank you. And we will now say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Kraft. At this time, I need a approval on the agenda. Do I have a motion that we approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Public comment session. I don't believe we had anyone sign up today for public comment. So we are going to take action for legal services. And Mr. Stefanik, if you would let us know about that.
Oh, can I squeeze in the field trips?
You sure can.
I don't think we had any legal trips, but you can see on here that we're excited to have folks at the state track meet. We're here back in May. That happened after your May meeting, and so that's on this one. And then we have all kinds of activities going on over the summer, and so we're excited to have our students involved in camps and summer learning activities pretty much throughout the state.
Okay.
Now I can talk about legal services.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We have legal counsel. The name of the firm is Tharrington & Smith, and they're out of the Raleigh area. They are an educational firm. Pretty much A to Z, morning, noon, and night. What they do is education law. And they've been with the district longer than I've been here. They were here when I arrived. They are a definite resource and a definite asset to the school district. They're always available when we call them, and they have multiple attorneys. And so if we can't get our one main contact attorney, they hand us off to another one that can answer our question, on the spot. They gave us a contract this year because the contract before that pretty much was, if neither party is dissatisfied, then the contract would just roll over. But this year, for the first time since 2012, they put a little bit of a fee increase on the contract. It turns out to be a $10 an hour increase in the fee. So first fee increase in 7 years. So you can do the math. It's about $1.10, $1.15 a year of an increase. But at the same time, they're proposing waiving the retainer fee. And so the retainer fee is $250 a month, and so times 12 months, that's $3,000. And so that would give us, with the $10 increase, that would give us the equivalent of 300 hours worth of service that we're going to get in replacement for that retainer, and that's because we've been a partner with them for so long.
I have a question. About how many hours
Ask that.
a month do we use them? Because I know as a board, I think we're going to come out ahead this way.
With the new contract? Yes, I mean, getting a $3,000 head start, is always good, but it depends what's going on, how often we use them. For example, if there's I don't want to divulge any confidential situations, but if there's a legal challenge to like an IEP, there's more hours involved in that. If we have to call because we're making sure that a state law just changed and we're making sure that if we do this, then that's in compliance with the state law, that might be like a 15-minute phone call. And so it doesn't take that long. Different months have different swing times. Lori, would you have, based on billing, would you have an estimate?
That would give us a
Okay.
good annual
Yeah.
average, yeah.
I would say that most months we're in that $3,000 to $5,000 range, and so again, getting this $3,000 upfront heads up would help us out a lot.
Great.
Okay.
We've spent right at $36,000 this year, and
There's
told me that they've
there's
already
3,000. Pardon?
They told me that they've already billed us for June.
Yes.
So that should be in December.
Okay.
Okay.
So that divides out to exactly $3,000 a month. So
Okay.
with this, we won't be paying anything. It'll absorb. It'll absorb the increase pretty much by waiving the retainer fee.
Okay.
So my recommendation is that, based on all the knowledge and skills that firm has, that we stay with them rather than somebody that does education law as one of their 10 things that they do.
Rather have an expertise in the field.
Yes.
Talked the board back when I was superintendent in 1998 into hiring Tharrington and Smith just because they specialized in education law, and they've served us well all those years.
Yes. All right, well, I'd like to make the motion that we accept their contract for legal services.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
At this time, Todd Parker, our athletic director, come forward and give us an update with our CHKD services.
Good afternoon. A little over 2 years ago, the Currituck Board of Education made a valuable and dedicated decision for the safety of our student athletes when they partnered with CHKD to provide athletic trainers in our middle schools and our high school. The contract is now up for renewal, and we're asking for the board to show that continued support for the safety of our kids. Before you have a chance to vote, I just wanted to give you some before and afters. Before CHKD, middle school games and practices did not always have medical attention. Middle school coaches were the ones responsible for the evaluation, the diagnosis, and the time period for recovery. Much of this was based on information that they gained through a 3 to 4 hour online class. Many times, Currituck Middle would reach out to the high school athletic trainer for assistance during injuries. This created a lapse in care for the high school athletes. Moyock Middle never had that option. Due to multiple athletic events at the high school, the athletic trainer would not be able to cover all the events. For example, if football practice was going on, they were required to be there at that practice. Meanwhile, a volleyball game's going on the inside, a soccer match might be going on, and a tennis match. So with just one athletic trainer, there was not enough personnel to cover everything. If the high school athletic trainer was out due to illness or other responsibility, the search for a volunteer would take place. On several occasions, Mr. Dean Dowdy took this responsibility for us, and on one occasion, we paid a CHKD athletic trainer to attend one of the football games in Hertford County. Some bullet points after CHKD came on board. Coverage at practices and games is now taking place with highly qualified medical personnel with years of training instead of a few hours of training. Immediate evaluations and treatments are taking place of those injured. The wait time to see the athletic trainer has been drastically reduced. The amount of 70-hour weeks has been drastically reduced for the athletic trainer at the high school. Community camps that we host as a school are now taking place with athletic trainers on site, giving the county the feeling that Currituck County Schools cares for the safety of their kids. Parents now have a sense of comfort that their children have proper medical attention at all times. Administrators know that medical decisions now are being made based on the best interests of the kids and not the best interests of the game. Kids are being properly cared for and returned not only to the field, but to the classroom at an appropriate time. This gives them the chance to better perform in the classroom and perform on those state tests. Also, some key stats that you might want to know about. Across the U.S., on average, 15 football players die each year due to an injury. Thousands more sustain catastrophic injuries, and hundreds of thousands have injuries that keep them out of games and out of schools. Reoccurring injuries rates are down 5% when the school does have an athletic trainer, and they are up 60% when they do not. During CHKD's time here, we have seen over 600 injuries requiring medical attention, over 2,300 treatments needed to get the students back on the field and back into the classroom. Over 150 had to be referred to a doctor. Several that needed surgeries, and these stats are just at the middle school. At the high school this past year, we had 7 significant knee and leg injuries that required surgery. And in one case, the player developed a blood clot, and without Miss Courtney Phelps recognizing this issue, he may have lost his life. Many times, those decisions made in the first 10 minutes of a catastrophic injury can be the difference between life and death. So at this time, we are asking the board if they would continue their support for the athletic trainers.
Any questions?
Well, could I make a motion first? that
Yes.
We adopt or, continue to have CHKD,
I'll
as our
second
athletic
that.
trainers.
All right, any discussion?
Now's the discussion.
I'm going to talk about the signage. I think I saw it in here. It was specific as to, if I'm not mistaken, one full-color CHKD banner provided by CHKD at each of the following: baseball fields, softball fields, soccer fields, and tennis courts.
Correct. Yes, and they handle that. And that's how you get your discounted rate. We're paying roughly $78,000.
And I understand that. That's the marketing.
Right.
And we're on the same page. So did we want to consider possibly adding some language in there in the event they wanted more of these and try to entice them to spend some money with us too? I don't know. Maybe
Well-
they might want more than one at each location, and we could have a fee in there. I
Well,
don't know.
prior to the meeting, I was asking Mr. Parker about the old contract versus the new contract that we are going to be renewing. And he stated that basically they mirror one another with the exception of another banner.
Adding a couple banners at particular fields. I think they added one extra one at the football field and one in their high school gym. And then they carry like ice chests around with their CHKD logo, and they're adding 2 additional carts that would have their equipment in there.
Can we hear from Courtney
Yes,
as to
certainly.
what her thoughts are, how she feels about this help she's received?
Sure. For those of you that don't know me, I have been the athletic trainer at the high school since 2009. I was the first athletic trainer here in the county. So I did this all by myself for 8 years. Then Mr. Parker was hired, and we had a discussion one day about how we were going to go about, like, what happened if you were sick, or, now I have children, and what were we going to do? What's our plan? I was like, well, there really isn't one. And so we kind of brainstormed and kind of came up with a plan of what we could do to assist me, because I also teach during the school day as well. So basically, this has changed my life dramatically, really. I was working between 70 and 80 hours a week. At that time, I wasn't married and didn't have kids, so it wasn't, in my opinion, that big of a deal at the time. It was very difficult for me, but now it would be even more difficult to do that by myself, especially when we have football that is required by the High School Athletic Association. We have to be there for their practices and also travel with them. So if I have to travel with JV football on a Thursday night, I'm leaving my varsity football team at school practicing, I'm leaving my soccer team, I'm leaving my volleyball team, tennis and cross country, all practicing or playing a game without me there. So it can make things challenging because then the coaches now have to come up with that responsibility of what to do, and they are so used to having me. So I usually get phone calls if something were to happen, and then we have to try to brainstorm over the phone. So the care is not adequate in that manner versus being on site. Since CHKD has come, I have a part-time, at this time is Warren Feldman, and he was able to come 2 or 3 days a week because we split him with Great Bridge High School because he's the half portion in the contract. And so he would come 2 to 3 days a week, and I would basically be the one deciding on the schedule, what it looked like, where we needed the most help. So we have nights where tennis, soccer, and volleyball are playing. I have a person at each location. Mickey Crosby, who is at Currituck Middle School, is very beneficial because that's also on the same campus as us. So therefore, if I'm at football practice and she's outside at one of her middle school practices, we can kind of transition over to something else. So when I get done with football, I can transition to soccer, or she'll transition to volleyball. So we kind of like coordinate and work together on how we can make sure everything is appropriately covered. And that caused my hours to drop dramatically. So I don't stay late every single time. Mickey will be like, "Oh, I'll cover volleyball today, so when football practice is done at 6:30, you can go home." And so that helped me with being a teacher as well and having a full teaching load to help me in that respect, because the documentation that we have to do on the medical field is also pretty substantial, and it gets more and more every year that we have to make sure that everything is documented appropriately. So being a teacher and doing everything in the classroom and then medical documentation, it helped me dramatically in that respect, and having somebody to help me in making sure that documentation was being completed appropriately.
Yes.
Did I
Thank
answer
you
the
so
question
much.
well?
Thank you. I can't believe you've been there 10 years.
I
That
Yes,
just
ma'am.
blows my mind.
I'm going to restart my 11th year.
thinking 3 or 4 years, not 10.
I
Thank you.
can't imagine the full teaching load and this. And I know you have a successful program in the classroom because I'm seeing some of your students go on and become athletic trainers.
That's
You
correct.
sparked the interest your classes did. So,
Thank you.
but you think CHKD is very valuable for our students.
Oh, yes, ma'am, absolutely. And it also for my students in the classroom where they're staying and doing clinical hours and observing, what we are doing, it gives them more opportunity to see more things. Whereas if it's just me covering an event, then they're just with me. But now I can send them to soccer or volleyball, or they can choose, like, oh, I want to go watch volleyball today, and they can go and do that and not necessarily have to be with me at football practice every day. And they get the opportunity to learn and see other things as well.
Okay, so they're almost in some teaching roles.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's great. I would like to see us put in some language about if they wanted some additional banners as to whatever the number is. I don't know what it is. I don't know if you have a set one for a yearly banner like theirs.
Is it
but-
$250?
It's usually $250
For the whole year?
$500 for 2 years is what we charge at the football
Okay,
field.
well, I think if we included that in there and they just decided they wanted to have a few more, that might just be helpful to them and helpful to us because it's already spelled out.
Okay. Todd, if you would you let the other board members know what we discussed prior to the meeting about the 3% that you negotiated that over a 4-year term?
Right. When the contract came up for renewal, they contacted us and said they had a 3% inflation rate increase on us. But they wanted to do it 3% in 1920, 3% 2021, 3% 22-23. So basically, we would have gone from 75,000 to 78,000 to 81,000 to 84,000. And I told them we did not want a varying rate each year. We wanted to go ahead and get a flat, solid rate. So I'd asked for $78,000 for 4 years. They called me back after about a week or so and said $78,000 for 2 years is what they would do. I emailed them back and said, we'll do $78,000 for 4 years. They said $78,000 for 3 years. I said, we'll do $78,000 for 4 years. And they finally agreed to $78,000 for 4 years, and then we don't have to worry about an increase every year. We've got a level playing field for the next 4 years.
Locked in,
And then
yeah.
certainly at the end of the third year, we'll start looking to renegotiate and also getting bids out there for other companies.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sounds great.
Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for all that you do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have our spring policy update, second reading and adoption from Superintendent Stefanik.
Excuse me, Ms.
Wait a minute.
Etheridge.
The budget
I think
amendments.
I think I don't know. Do you have the newest
Budget.
set of the agenda?
Oh, here it is. No, I had
There's
the old one.
there's a couple other things. I can do it, but
printed the old one.
yeah,
This isn't the old one.
I did the same thing. I had to
I think we have the budget amendments next.
I have
didn't
the old
have
one.
but one,
Okay,
so-
that's why we got confused earlier. I was
Before.
like, I'm looking right. Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
the paper copy in your folder is the one that's the most
Okay.
current one. So now we have short timer, Lori Trussell.
Lori
is
Trussell,
on
one last hurrah, huh?
Y'all haven't seen me smile too much, have you? I do take all this pretty seriously. Okay, so budget amendments, and you have a copy of it in front of you.
Budget Amendment
They
2.
look like this, yes, ma'am.
Yes, number 2.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So for state public school, the budget has increased $153,000. That brings the total state budget to $27,000.6 million. Most of these increases were transportation, received some extra funding. Some reading camp funds came in, and we received Indian gaming funds. On your next page, the local current expense budget. No change in the dollar amount. We did move a little bit of money around. We had a child nutrition secretary leave that's not been replaced, and so we moved it around to cover some different positions in the system. And that budget ends at $11.4 million. Federal grant funds, we received $142,000. That brings the total budget to just over $2 million. We had, the bulk of that money came in. We received $70,000 for Title I targeted school improvement and risk pool funds. The next amendment, capital outlay fund. We added $260,000. That brings that total budget up to $2.49 million. And that is the $200,000 for the Currituck Middle School wall repair. We received, I posted the state replacement bus payment interest. I posted some interest and some sale of fixed assets. Other local fund received $274,000. That brings that total budget to $1.54 million. Those extra funds came largely from Medicaid, Chromebook insurance, Impact Aid grant, and that's it, and indirect cost. Any questions?
I'd like to make a comment if I can. Budgets are difficult enough when you're just like in July or August, you're given allocations and then you have your expenditure sheet and you have to do this. I don't remember the exact number of our last email, but we've had changes to the budget over 40 times. This school year. Over 50 now? We've hit 50?
Eight.
Okay, yeah. Over 50 times, and we get an email. Lori gets it, and I get it.
On a year.
Right. And so, most of those, I hope, have plus signs in them, when they make a budget adjustment from the state level, but sometimes they don't. And so, again, kudos to Lori and her staff for keeping on top of all these changes, because today you have this much money in that account, tomorrow you have a different amount, next week you have a different amount, and 50 times, I think I heard, Dwan say it, once a week. Well, that's for a 12-month calendar year. And so kids are only in session 9 months, and the teachers are around for 10, and so it's more than once a week that something happens. And so gladly in this one with the budget amendments, there's a lot of plus signs on this where you're making changes, and that's a good thing. But there are some that show up that have minus signs on them, and then we're in the scramble mode to make sure that the budget can stay intact.
Yes.
Could I ask a question about the last page? I heard you say Chromebook insurance. Can you tell me where is that and how much? And I'm trying to understand what, is that premiums we collected from parents for their students?
Yes.
How much is that?
$25 a student. So this is money collected.
But how much is it total, is what I mean, roughly?
Probably about $40,000 a year.
40,000. So is that the $39,521.89 under instructional services?
It's on the last page, Laura.
Yeah, last page.
No, actually, hang on, I can tell you what that is. That would be NC Pre-K, demo classroom. Auto shop, where we collect the fees and then we have to pay it. We have to pay the advanced auto bill. Special Olympics.
Yes, ma'am. So the
Chromebook additional revenues $15,000.
Okay, so we collect $15,000 per every Chromebook at $25 for an insurance policy. Do we buy insurance for the Chromebooks?
We
Or
do.
we self-insure them, or how does that?
We buy insurance, and then these funds also support some of the repairs on the Chromebooks.
Okay, so is that, are we in the black or the red with that?
The black.
Okay, so how much does our Chromebook insurance roughly cost?
I think it's somewhere probably between 30 and 40,000. We actually collect more than that now that I'm thinking about it. We can work something up and give you the information if you want
I'd
it.
just be interested in knowing if there's a way to make it,
Revenue neutral.
yeah, not costly to the parent.
Well, the only thing she said it, that the repairs were also involved in that too, and so it would be very difficult, I think, to have it exactly. I'd like it to be more negative.
Insurance covers
Yeah,
the repair.
repairs are covered
No,
with the- oh, they're
No?
not?
It recovers more if you totally break it. And I'm not the right person to be answering all these questions, and Sandy Reynolds is not here. But I know they make repairs. They were sending some of them off, but they've been making the repairs themselves, the simpler repairs. The insurance more covers if they lose it or they break it where
Or
it's
it's
not
destroyed.
even fixable. Mm-hmm. But some of these are broke more than once a year. They drop them. You're dealing with students, and they get dropped, and the face breaks on it. And she could certainly bring a better report to you.
And I'm not trying to pin you down or be funny, but I was just trying to figure it out too, because I didn't know it was 10,000 to 40,000. I have no,
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know if, like, I know a lot of insurances like that, the first time it covers it 100%, and the second time you break it, it's a little less, and the third time.
I'm curious
So-
as to if we're bidding it out, if we're doing it annually, if we're doing it not at all. Those are things.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes they can make the repairs, and sometimes they can't. They have to send
I
them
mean,
out.
for the insurance at $40,000.
Yeah, or if you have so many dings, so many repairs or replacements, then your cost is going to go
Yeah,
up.
we probably
Yeah.
could get Sandy to give us some information about that.
To know if
Insurance policy.
Yeah,
we're in the
maybe
black
get Sandy
or
to.
in the red, and if we are, the amount that it's costing us, if it's costing us with the policy, the insurance policy, and the claims, like how many claims we've had, and if it's repair or replacement.
Okay. I wrote it down, and I'll tell her that. Okay.
Any other questions for Lori?
Amen. Thank you.
I think she has
Are they
more,
approved?
I move that we approve the budget amendments.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, I don't have enough information to not approve it, right?
Huh?
What I'm saying is I don't have any information to go against it, so I'm going to go with it. But I'd like to, in the future,
Oh,
understand
yeah,
more
she's
about
going
it.
to provide us that,
Yes,
but
ma'am.
we're talking about the budget amendments as a whole.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Lori, it sounds like with these amendments, we came out to the good.
We did.
Everything was increase. Okay.
Okay. So,
I'm in favor of it.
did you second it?
Oh, yes, I didn't second, but I will.
Okay. I've got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Just to define that, this was a vote on the budget amendments.
Yes.
We will get the information about the Chromebook insurance
Chromebook.
policy,
That's
and we can make
because
decisions for the
we
future.
were approving all these increases to go back into the budget. I got
Right,
it.
right.
But while she was reeling off what all these totals were, it sparked a conversation that was related
Right,
but
right,
unrelated.
yeah, right. And we can do motions in the future about insurance companies or insurance policies or whatever, or the rate we charge families. We can do all that stuff in the future.
Side. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Okay. You also got this report. This is, I think, the third time you received it. So this is something where I'm required to give the board now. And you'll notice that we've spent 97% of our state money. We have some money that rolls over, and then we have positions, and if all our teachers, like in the State 01 positions, if they don't cost as much as they allot us, we can't spend it. We can only have a position there. So that's why you've not totally spent it out, because everything's zeroed out except for one PRC that carries over. And in local, we've spent, and this thing's almost too small for me to read. Is it 98%? 96%?
93.97? Is that what you're looking?
That's the grand
Final
total.
percentage?
Grand
Okay.
total,
96.86.
Yeah.
96.86.
Federal, you haven't spent as much because some of that money rolls over to start the new year. Their fiscal year runs differently than ours. Capital outlay, 82% spent, because some of those projects roll over, the lottery and the new wall project that we just started. Child nutrition, she did not spend all her budget. That's a good thing. And Fund 8 is at
69.
69%. There's a reason I'm retiring. So, but a lot of those projects roll over too. Revenue comes in at the end of the year, and we appropriate it next year.
Child nutrition, how do we do with accounts being paid up?
She ended up about $21,000 in the hole, so I've just made that payment. And we've had some donations made that zeroed out a few schools. I don't know. I guess it's about the same that it's been. But that's a problem nationwide.
Yes.
Yeah, and just so the board knows, we go ahead and clear the account because our accounts have to be clear at the end of the year, but we are keeping track of, I guess what we call what each individual family owes. So, they don't have a deadline to pay it off by July 1st, but that'll just stay in their account, and so they'll have to pay it back at some point in the child's educational career, but it just won't be in the same budget year.
What do you
necessarily.
mean? So they can't graduate from high school if they haven't paid all their money?
That could be the very last, hurdle that they have to jump over. But what could happen is they could be charging a lot in third grade, and then that account balance will still be there in their account when they hit 7th grade, 8th grade, until it gets paid off.
Well, one time we talked about turning them over to a collection agency. Has that been done?
We, to a point, when we got into the really, really fine print of the collection agency contract, it said that if they got to the point where they didn't get the collections and they took the person to court, all the court costs were on the district. And so when you're talking about individual families, they may owe us $300, but by the time you take them to small claims court or wherever, the legal fees and things like that, you're going to end up spending more than you get back. And so we're in negotiations now with the collection agency about what they can do shy of taking somebody to court to try to get as much of that money back as possible.
Okay.
And that's after many, many attempts at the school district level to get the money turned in.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Laurie.
The next item
Okay.
two. Recommendation for audit. On top of everything else that happens at year end, our old auditor, Catalfa Mo, said that he was not going to be able to do this year's audit somewhere along in May, towards the end of May. So we had to scramble to try to find someone to do this audit because most auditors are fully booked already. We did find 2 firms that agreed to do an RFP, which is a request for proposal. And they were Anderson, Smith & White and Donna Winborn, who was out of Edenton. Both of them said we would go last on their list, so the audit will not be finished to come to you until the January board meeting. But Anderson, Smith & White was the low bid. They do about 50 Board of Educations. They're a very good firm to work with.
Where are they out of?
I meant to look that up.
Have you worked with them before, Lori?
I have worked with one of their auditors before. He was with a different firm then. And I still use him as a resource sometimes because he's one of their partners is married actually to a school system finance officer, a large school system. So they're good to answer questions. They understand a lot because they've got that inside knowledge. Rockingham.
Rockingham.
Do you know why Catalfa Mo would not want to continue?
I'm trying to. He asked me a lot about my eye problems, and I think he's got some issues. And he said that he just wouldn't be able to do the audit this year.
Back some. Okay. All right.
Wasn't there something else about one of his people he relied on to do part of the
He
report? Wasn't
He has
available
to have an
either?
independent person review
Yeah.
his audit before he can
And
present it
he
to
lost
us.
that one. That's true.
All right. Okay. All right. Any other questions for Laurie concerning that before we?
Just one. I see some cost here, and how do they compare to the previous? firm?
It's less.
This is? And so
A
when
little
they have
bit
to-
less.
When they have to come and do their presentation, that's all inclusive of this?
It is. All their travel costs
Yes,
are
ma'am.
included.
Thank you.
I think when we originally, if I remember correctly, when we originally hired Catafamo, we did pay a little bit more, but we wanted to support local and use local, and so that was why. But this is less, correct? Isn't that what you said? Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a motion that we?
I
accept-
motion that we use the Anderson, Smith, and Wilk for our audit services.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie.
Thank you, Lori.
All right, Superintendent
Enjoy
Stefanik.
retirement, Lori.
I'm hoping.
Yeah.
One more day?
As she exits the podium, I just wanted to recognize Lori. This is her last board meeting, so we wish her well in her retirement.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. All right. Next, we have the second reading and adoption of 2019 Spring Policy Update. And Ms. Rose would like to exclude something from the adoption.
Well, I'd just like to pull it out for discussion. Policy number 2330.
Okay.
Do I need to make a motion and then a second and all that to pull it out, or?
Well, I think what you can do is you can make a motion to open the item, and then you can talk about individual policies while it's open. So if
Any
you
of
make,
them.
if you're making a motion to adopt,
Okay.
then you get a second, then you discuss, and you can discuss any one you want.
Okay.
So you don't have to pull it out.
All right.
We might want to modify it, we might not want to adopt it.
Well,
Right, then
well,
you
we
modify, then you modify the motion, yeah.
okay, do
Yeah.
I have a motion that we adopt the policy update?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Okay, now you're at 2330.
Now you're discussing.
Looking at policy 2330, it talks about not just having a majority of the vote of the members to amend an agenda. It says we must have 2/3.
Right. And it's recommended, that's not one of the ones that's mandatory. So if this board would like to keep it as just majority, and what you're talking about is majority is 3, 2/3 is 4. So if that's the difference. And so if you wanted to keep it at just a majority of the board to amend a budget, I don't think that's a big deal.
Okay.
I'd like to keep it at the majority. I make a motion, we keep it as it is.
I will second that motion. Okay, and what other item?
Well, do we need to vote on that particular one?
Well,
amending it.
yeah, now we're in a, that's what you would do. You would amend your motion to accept them all as is. You would say
Exception.
with the exception of the last sentence in 2330, leave it as majority of the board, not 2/3.
I make a motion for that.
Okay, I second that.
Because then you don't have two motions going on. You're just amending your original
Okay,
motion
so I'm amending my original motion
to say that.
to say what he just said. In other words,
To change it from
we are
2/3.
we are not changing it. We will, in order to amend an agenda, we will leave it at a majority.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Right, second
All
the
right.
amended motion.
Any further
Right.
discussion? Okay, then that item, 2330, will be left as is. Okay, and Mr. Craddock, do you have a question on any of the other items?
I do not believe so. I do not.
Okay. All right, we have a first and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. All right, our consent agenda, we need action. Do I have a motion?
Well, one moment. I guess we can make a motion and we'll have a discussion. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I would like to discuss the contract that we have with, let me find their name,
Right here.
Faison, School for Autism. Do we have lots of students that benefit from this?
No, one.
And how much did we pay them last year?
Ms. Miller, will you come forward?
Yeah. I'll give the board some background information before Jamie talks. When we go through our continuation of services for students on IEPs, when we get to a situation where we don't have the services inside of our own school district, we look to outside agencies that can meet the needs of the student's IEP, and this is one of those. We cannot mention the student's name, we can't mention the actual IEP disability category, but we can answer questions about the general contract.
But legally, we have to provide a service that
Addresses the IEP.
addresses the
yes.
IEP.
Yes.
Okay.
And I understand that it can't go over 100,000, but do we have any idea what we spent last year?
We're at 75,000.
75.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Is that extended school year services too?
Yes.
Okay. Which is summer, so just.
Does that include the transportation that we provided?
No, it doesn't. No.
Right, that's where it gets significant, because we've got the cost for the school, the contract with the school, and then we're bound to provide transportation. Now, what we're looking into is we're looking at transportation options to get that amount to come down. And so we might be partnering with another transportation agency if we can save some money.
I got a question. They're traveling all the way to that address on that contract? Is that where they go?
Virginia.
If that's Newport News, yes.
That's what the
Yes.
address is?
Yes.
Is that the only closest provider for that type of service that we might be able to work with?
Yes, sir. There's one other school. It's also in Virginia, and when I got a quote on their services, it was within $40 for the entire school year.
Yes, ma'am. I was just wondering, because even though it might be within $40 of that number, if the mileage is different and the transportation cost might vary, I do not know.
It's still pretty far out there. It's in Western Branch.
Western Branch is, I know,
Closer
but
than-
that's much closer.
than
in
Newport
Chesapeake
News.
than Newport News, you got to go through the Monitor Merrimack Tunnel.
It may save us on
I
transportation
do not
costs.
know. Is this, do we have to do this today, or could we set this aside and think about and talk about?
I have one more question. I'm sorry. I know
have
we
to
have
ask.
several members of our population that maybe have this designation. Is this amount, I know you're telling me it's one student, but should we have another student that needs this? Would this amount cover them as well? The basic $59.55 a month
No, that would be per pupil.
per pupil?
Okay.
But the transportation could possibly be worked out, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. And I know. I just saw those numbers.
Yeah.
Can you-
Okay, does a possibility exist that we can hire a teacher and service a kid at his house?
It would not just be a teacher. The IEP team made a decision based on data that the school collected that the school could not meet his needs, and that was the closest school that could
That the school could not be what? I'm sorry.
meet his needs.
All right, can I ask you to do us a favor?
Sure.
See what the difference would be for transportation, Newport News versus Western Branch. See what kind of savings that would be.
Okay.
And I think that's the only real difference, right?
Is it are we,
If I could caution, this is driven by an IEP team decision, not a board decision, not a school level. It's an IEP team decision based on the level of services required for a student.
Right.
So just because there's a school closer does not mean they can provide the same type of services that are needed by that student's IEP.
Right.
So while we can look at
That's
other
all I want us to
services,
do.
closer transportation.
Yeah.
I just want to keep in mind that this would be an IEP team's decision. And continuity of services for a student, such as the one that is placed, is extremely important.
Yes.
No, yes, ma'am. And
Definitely.
that's why I asked her if there was another
Well
possible
qualified.
qualified organization. That was the first question. And she said yes, and they were within $40. Secondly, the student that has to ride all the way to Newport News and back every day
Right.
might have a little bit better time only going to Western Branch. I don't know. I'm just looking at all the things.
Just want to
and
explore
I
the
was asking her
options.
to bring back
And we
more
want to make
information.
sure that both, are meeting the student's needs. Both of them are equal as far as what they can offer this student. I wouldn't want to change his or her education because of a distance. I don't
Yeah.
want to, I don't want to do that. I'm just saying if the education is the same and same qualifications, and we can look at the Western Branch versus Newport News, I'd like to explore that.
And it may benefit the child being on the bus less time. I mean, I certainly am not familiar with his IEP, but, you know, if we could explore that.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Jamie. All right, so we have a first and we have a second. Any further discussion? With the exception, she's going to get that information to us. So, Mr. Stefanik, should we exclude that one from the consent agenda, right, that item?
Well, maybe I have a question. Do we pay this monthly, or do we have to do a year contract with them?
Contract right here.
We have a contract for a year. Pay our invoices, and that's not great.
Starting July 1, it says.
I reviewed the contract a long time ago. Is there an out clause in there?
There is, and the IEP team meets regularly to make sure that it is the right placement.
So if the IEP met and saw that there was a shorter ride for the student, then we wouldn't be penalized for canceling the contract.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So in other words, the board could approve it today.
'Cause the
and that gets
IEPs
a
are
service
federal,
over the
yeah.
summer. We can do the investigation on the other one, and if the IEP team felt that the new one was good, and then possibly in the fall we can make changes, and then we'd be able to save transportation dollars.
Yeah, they would have, I think, to do that because IEPs are federally.
Right.
All I see on termination is the school system, they terminate this contract at any time at its, do you have the?
Discretion.
Right, and that's the coverage for
Right.
the IEP. Yeah, they can't hold something if the student's needs would change. They're not meeting the needs. The school district has to look for something else. They have to release that student.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
So with all that being said, the board could approve this. Again, that gets us through the summer.
This
to do
year
the
round?
investigation.
Does he go year round?
Yes, he
Okay.
gets extended school year. Yes.
That's what it,
We have to do it right now in order to let him, yeah.
and so it says all we do have to do is give them written notice.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. All right, we have a first, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, we're going to be having student board member interviews on August 1st. That's always an exciting time to get new board members, and that'll be held at the Knapp Professional Learning Center, and the time is to be determined. We also have a work session August 1st at the Knapp Professional Learning Center at 4 p.m., and our regular scheduled Board of Education meeting will be that day also at 6:30 here at the courthouse. Board member and
Madam Chairman,
Yes,
I would like to be excused from the remaining part of the meeting.
yes. Thank you, Dr. Dobney. All right, starting with Dwan Craft.
Okay. Well, we all had a busy time this last little ending of school. I did get to both of our high school graduations. Congratulations to those graduates. I went to the Evening of Excellence at Currituck County Middle School. I went to Shawboro Elementary School's 5th grade completion ceremony. I went to Moyock Elementary School's kindergarten graduation, and I visited the rest of the schools. So I hope everyone has a wonderful summer and comes back refreshed and ready for a new year.
Thank you. Mr. Crowley?
Well, let's see, I did attend the Currituck County High School graduation, the J.P. Knapp Early College graduation, and a couple awards programs, one in particular at Knott's Island Elementary, and it has been pretty busy, but now it's even getting busier for me this time of the year, and so I hope everybody's having a great time with their summer vacation, and God bless Currituck County.
Thank you. Ms. Rose?
Okay. I would like to say I'm proud of all our graduates, both NAP and CCHS 2019. I know they'll do great things. I'd like to thank all of our faculty and staff members for going above and beyond for our students. And I do have a couple of things. This is where Mr. Stefanik said I could bring it up, so we'll maybe consider this for the next meeting. I'd like for us to look at an increase in recess. And we talked about this briefly last year when we had an extra 4 or 5 days at the end of the year where we built in time and we didn't use it for inclement weather. And we asked, could they maybe get some extra recess? So I know there's a lot more to recess than kids just playing and running wild. There are things that happen at recess that I'm sure are a part of the curriculum with problem solving and all that good stuff. Policy 7100 has to do with hiring personnel. I would like for us to look at maybe coming up with another policy, as though we don't have enough, maybe 7101. And I actually read about this in the paper from our neighbor. That's where I got the idea. But I would like for us to receive additional information about candidates for certified positions. I would like for the superintendent to provide us the names of the candidates interviewed. Of course, this would be confidential. And their present or most recent employment, and a brief rationale for your recommendation on hiring these certified folks. I'd also like information on student fees being collected. I know we have fees at the high school, and we have had for several years. I heard of students having to catch up on astronomical fees before they could buy prom tickets. I know we've got Chromebook fees at many of our schools, and I'm just not really sure of what other fees we might have. I know long ago when I started teaching, we had a $3 instructional fee per student that the teacher was able to buy classroom supplies with, and we did away with that fee. So I'd just like to be brought up to date on all the fees our system has. And one more idea that was brought to me by a teacher at the high school. She had heard of another system where employees could make suggestions to save money. And when the system did find something that in fact saved them $1,000 or $50,000, they implemented those cost-saving measures, and as a reward to the employee for coming up with that, they were given like a little bonus of maybe 10% or some monetary value out of the savings. So I'd like for us to look at that as well. Mm-hmm. And I hope all of our students and teachers have a safe and happy summer, and all faculty members.
Thank you. Mr. Stefanik?
Thank you. Just wanted to inform the board, if you didn't already know, we've got teacher work committees working over the summer on curriculum alignment and standards work. But on top of that, it's kind of like summer work on steroids. Today was the second day of a 2-day workshop spearheaded by our instructional coaches, Christy Hodges and Krista Neeb, working in conjunction with instructional coaches from Pitt County. And they had upwards of 50 teachers at Shawboro yesterday and today, and the teachers were from Currituck, Camden, Perquimans, and Pitt County. And they're working on help me, Matt. Math. It was math. Yeah, math-based. Yeah, math skills, aligning things to standards, student engagement type ideas and best practices, and it was neat to see 50 teachers from across the region, there, and sad that we didn't have teachers from all the districts in the Northeast, but we did get 4 or 5 districts represented, and they were going at it yesterday when I was there, very engaged and very complimentary of the instructional coaches and the plan for the training. So it was a nice thing for Currituck. It could have been just a Currituck-based training, but we put it out there to the whole region, and we got a nice response.
That's wonderful. All right, thank you. I too congratulate all of our seniors at Currituck County High School as well as Knapp Early College. What an exciting time for all of those young adults. I hope everyone's enjoying their summer. Do something fun, exciting, spending time with family or friends, or just sitting out on the beach by yourself reading a good book. Enjoy your summer, and at this time, I'd like to ask that we have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.